Guten Tag, APUSH. We have a new video today. It's the bee's knees by the big cheese himself, Mr. Liniger. Let's make history today as we jaw over Unit 2, Day 4. But first, let's do our daily punishment. Why was Dumbo sad? He was irrelevant. Oh, Dumbo, you're irrelevant. Your key terms for today: the Olive Branch Petition, Second Continental Congress, common sense, the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson, the Battle of Long Island, the Battle of Trenton, Battle of Fort Ticonderoga, Benedict Arnold, the Battle of Saratoga, Armed Neutrality, Joseph Brant, John Paul Jones, Battle of Yorktown, and the Treaty of Paris, 1783. Our key concepts is American feelings towards independence and the major political events, progression of the American Revolution, the battles, and the effects of the American Revolution. So right when the war started, the colonial government, the colonists are going to send a petition to the King of England saying that they were still loyal to the king. They wanted to avoid total war. This was created by the Second Continental Congress. We talked about the First Continental Congress. The association was not a legislative body. The Second Continental Congress, which will meet and eventually Georgia will join, was a legislative body. And even though the colonists were creating their own legislative branch, they had not broken off officially from England yet. They were claiming still to be loyal in the Olive Branch Petition. But they were super hypocritical because while they were doing this, they had already authorized an invasion of Canada. One of the things you're going to constantly see is the American desire to attack Canada. Britain is going to realize that the colonists were kind of full of it, and they're going to say, nah. So the war will go on, and it will continue. The Americans will try to attack Canada. They want to have a 14th colony, whether the Canadians want to join or not, and it will fail. Benedict Arnold will get shot during this war, leading a heroic charge. He'll lose part of his leg. He'll become a hero, a war hero. During this time, a pamphleteer from Britain who was living in the colonies named Thomas Paine is going to make a pamphlet called Common Sense. In Common Sense, he's going to argue for independence. He's going to say that it makes no sense for a small island, Britain, to control a large continental colony, the 13 colonies. It's only common sense to declare independence. This was meant to convince unsure people. At this time, there were patriots, people that wanted independence. There were Tories or loyalists, people that wanted to remain loyal to Great Britain. This will divide families. Benjamin Franklin, who was pretty moderate at first, became a patriot, while his son was a loyalist and will eventually be arrested, and it's going to destroy their relationship. This was Common Sense was meant to convince the majority of the people who were kind of unsure. It was not very clear-cut, especially at first, where to fall on independence. But we will have a break. Richard Henry Lee of Virginia is going to draft a resolution that the colonies should be free and independent. The document is going to be drafted by Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin. Thomas Jefferson is going to write the document. He's going to appeal to natural rights, the whole idea of natural rights from John Locke, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, although John Locke said life, liberty, and property. In the Declaration of Independence, the way the document works is it first goes through the idea of natural rights, then it lists all the bad thing that the British government had done. It was specifically blaming the king. They wanted to try to leave a door open for Parliament to kind of go against the war. And then it's going to say, deuces, we are done. We're independent now. The vote for this was on July 2nd. The document was signed on July 4th. This created a debate for one person. John Adams always thought July 2nd was the real day of American independence. He would celebrate American independence on July 2nd, even though everybody else celebrated it on July 4th when the document was signed, because he's a bitter old man. Here's the signing of the Declaration of Independence, or redrawn, repainting. Let's talk about some of the battles. One of the first things the Continental Congress does is it appoints George Washington as overall commander. You remember the greatness of George Washington's military ability in the French and Indian War, where he led a whole army to be massacred under William Braddock, also with him surrendering Fort Necessity. Washington is a little bit wiser now. He will at first try to attack the British, and this is going to lead to huge defeats. So in the Battle of Long Island, it's going to be a huge defeat for America, the American colonies, and they're going to have to basically get out of New York. What's going to happen is Washington is going to realize that really what he needs to do is strike small targets and basically try to move away, run away. And over time, the British government will lose the will to fight. So he's not going to attack the British army directly until their army is much larger. He is going to attack a small British garrison in Trenton, New Jersey on December 26th. This is where you see the famous painting of Washington crossing the Delaware. There was 100 Hessian soldiers who were mercenaries, German mercenaries. They were drunk from Christmas Eve and hungover, and he's going to attack them in the dead of night. It's going to be a very morale booster right here. After this, he will attack Princeton and kick the British out of Princeton. One of the cannons from the American Revolution is still buried in Princeton, which is kind of cool. You should know that probably the greatest general in the American Revolution on the American colony side was Benedict Arnold. Low key, that's the facts. He's going to defeat the British in the Battle of Fort Ticonderoga. If the British had captured Fort Ticonderoga in New York, it would have divided the colonies into two. And he will defeat the British there. He also was a hero from the invasion in Canada. He's also going to be the major reason the colonies are going to win in their most important battle, the Battle of Saratoga. He's going to defy an order from his overall commander, Charles Lee, and he's going to lead in an attack. He will actually win this battle, and he's really responsible for winning the Battle of Saratoga. Great hero. Benedict Arnold, however, is going to become very embittered towards the colonies. After this, he's going to be put in charge of Philadelphia. He's going to be accused of corruption. He's going to marry a woman that had loyalist sympathies. He's eventually going to be charged for corruption and stuff, and he's going to feel like his honor was stained. George Washington was friends with Benedict Arnold. He was trying to calm him down. He was going to allow Benedict Arnold to join the army again. But by this time, Benedict Arnold's wife was convincing him that he should join the British army, and he was writing to a spy in the British army. Benedict Arnold is going to he's going to tell Washington he wants to be in control of West Point. He tries to lull George Washington to come to West Point, and then he would give it over to the British, so they would capture George Washington. However, in the last minute, the note will be intercepted. The colonists will rush in. Arnold will run away to the British ship. He will eventually join the British army and will have a very unhappy life. He's kind of thought of as a traitor by both sides. Benedict Arnold's wife will kind of play dumb, and she'll say she didn't know what was going on, even though she was the driving force by it. And it's really, really sad because he was actually a pretty big hero. I like him. This is the crossing of the Delaware for the Battle of Trenton. Battle of Saratoga. This is a turning point. This is one of the big battles you need to know from the American Revolution. After the Battle of Saratoga, the French were negotiating with the colonists, but they weren't officially in the war. They weren't officially fighting against the British. They weren't sure the colonies would win. After this, they're going to make an alliance after the Battle of Saratoga, they will make an alliance with the 13 colonies. They'll aid them. They'll give them a navy. They'll start sending soldiers, although that will take a while. They'll also sign a document that neither side will sign a separate peace treaty with the British, which the colonies will break. This will make the American Revolution a world war. France will enter on the side of the colonists. Soon after, Holland and Spain will do this also. They want to humble Britain. Even the countries that will remain neutral will form a group called Armed Neutrality. This will be led by countries like Russia and some other countries. They're going to be very hostile to the British. So even though they're neutral, it's armed neutrality. It's not very neutral. Native Americans will be on both sides, just like the French and Indian War. So, for example, the Iroquois Nation was made up of 6 tribes. 2 of them will support the Americans. 4 of them will side with the British. One of the most famous Native American chiefs was Joseph Brant. He was descended from both English and Native American. He will be a Native American general that will fight for the British, and he will fight for the British along with some other Native American tribes. which is going to become problematic after the war because the colonies will win. Eventually, we're going to have Yorktown. During this whole time, there will be some naval heroes. The British obviously have the greater navy, but the colonists will do some privateering. They'll get some colonial sailors to have ships and to attack all British merchant vessels. The British said this was piracy, but the colonists said this was not piracy, like they had authorized them to be privateers. John Paul Jones was one person. He would capture great British ships. John Paul Jones was kind of a troll. He would go up to a British ship using the British flag, so they would think it's a British ship. And then right before he attacked, he would take down the flag and put up the American flag and then attack them. I love you, John Paul Jones. American privateers will bring in gold, and they'll harass great British merchant ships. And now, the last big battle, the Battle of Yorktown. Great Britain is eventually going to be backed up to Virginia. They're going to be surrounded by the colonial army. The French Navy has control over the ocean, so the British have nowhere to go. The colonies are going to lead one more attack to destroy the British position in Yorktown. It will be led by the Marquis de Lafayette. One of the people Lafayette and Washington will put in charge to actually lead the attack is going to be a young aide of George Washington, the late, great, the one and only Alexander Hamilton. After the British spot was taken, the British General Cornwallis realized there was nothing he could do, so he will be forced to surrender. We have another Treaty of Paris. Even though the Battle of Yorktown was in 1781, the war is not going to end for a couple more years. There won't be any more big battles. But during this time, there were some negotiators in Paris, like Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams. The colonists are going to realize they'll get a better deal if they sign a separate peace treaty with the British and don't include the French. So they're going to kind of betray their alliance. They're going to get all land west of the Appalachian Mountains. So not only are the 13 colonies independent, they also get the whole Ohio River Valley right here. Ohio River Valley. They'll also allow to have fisheries in Newfoundland. And it will be a really generous peace treaty for the colonial government. The United States, because now we're a country, will be the only real winner in this war. France just becomes more in debt. The British lose this war. The people are sick of this war. The king kind of looks stupid after this war. But we are the winner. Yeah. And that's all I have for you for today, kiddos. America. Until next time. Deuces. Deuces, deuces, yeah.